Welcome to the hotline for today, Friday, the 22nd August 2025. Good to be with you today, listeners. We thank you so much for joining. We know that you have choices. We're happy when you come here, happier when you find reasons to stay. This is the hotline.
Emily's views, her position on the issues, her point of view backed up by the facts. Here are Emily's views.
"14 beautiful parishes at the moment, 63 constituencies, hundreds of political divisions in the 63 constituencies across the island, hundreds too of electors on the voters list who will contest the elections, cast their ballots for one of the 189 candidates who are vying for the 63 constituencies in the election to come. St. Andrew, big parish in terms of seat count. There are 12 seats in St. Andrew. 9 of them have been considered over the years to be safe. Of the 9, 4 of those so-called safe seats are held by the Jamaica Labour Party, and 5 of the so-called safe seats are for the People's National Party, and then the other 3 marginal seats to which we look on the night of election for some indication as to what is really happening. And those 3 marginal seats are now held by Jamaica Labour Party representatives because of that massive win for the Jamaica Labour Party in the last election held on the 3rd September, Thursday it was, 2020. Those 3 marginal seats in St. Andrew, West Rural, which is now held by Olympian Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, and fascinatingly, I believe when I look at my breakdown of this seat, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn took all of the divisions, I believe, in that constituency in the last election. Some other time during this program, I will do a full breakdown and to go division by division for you. She will be going up in this election against a woman who represented the JLP in East Rural St. Andrew before. She also headed the National Solid Waste Management Authority at one point in time. That's Joan Gordon Webley. She flipped some years ago, and she's now running against Juliet Cuthbert Flynn in the marginal seat of West Rural, St. Andrew. Juliet Cuthbert Flynn is seeking to secure her 3rd consecutive victory in that seat. East Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Holness, also seeking to hold it for the 3rd consecutive time. She's going up against Attorney at Law Patrick Peterkin. It will be fascinating to watch what happens in light of certainly reports of solidifying or solidification of that seat by the actions of the current Representative Juliet Holness there. Eastern St. Andrew, the first Finance Minister, Favour Williams, now holds that seat, and she too will be seeking 3rd consecutive in Eastern St. Andrew. She's going up against a lady who is from a political a family that has had service in politics in the country, Patricia Duncan Sutherland. Patricia Duncan Sutherland, I recall, certainly the last election and before that in Southeast Clarendon, when Roddy Spencer was there as Member of Parliament. She was a formidable candidate in that election. I think by all accounts she'd set up full station in the constituency and had done a lot of work. But it never materialized for her. A second shot at it didn't materialize either. And so she's now coming closer into St. Andrew Eastern, going up against Fable Williams. Voting pattern in that seat, very important to watch in the two divisions. One of the seats with two divisions, not unlike a couple others. But the voting history of that seat and what has happened over the last 4 or 5 elections, they make for fascinating stories to tell. And then we have Kingston. We think Kingston is Jamaica, but Kingston really only has 3 constituencies. And 2 of those constituencies are traditionally safe seats for the People's National Party. And the other is safe for the Jamaica Labour Party. The 2 traditionally safe are the East Kingston and Port Royal. Philip Paulwell holds that seat. And the one that we most certainly normally put in the safe seat column for the PNP is Kingston Central. Hold on that, let me take a break. Put safe in quotations when I do my assessment of seats politically, because Central Kingston, heading into 2020, even with low voter turnout in that election occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic and its attendant issues, Central Kingston flipping Ronnie Thwaites' old stomping ground, flipping to Donovan Williams when Donovan Williams, a political neophyte, was challenged. Or let me put it another way, Imani Duncan Price, who had attempted to seek representation in West Rural St. Andrew and failing there, she'd moved on to Central Kingston and took on Donovan Williams, whose only claim to fame, if there's any fame, was at the time that he is the brother of the mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew, Delroy Williams. Imagine my shock and the shock of many when Donovan Williams won that seat in 2020 by 303 votes. And in recent times, though it's still one of those seats that I believe, if the PNP is to have a chance of winning the majority in this 2025 election, it has to take back Central Kingston. And over the course of next week, we will go through the different routes or paths to victory for the People's National Party. And there's really only one route for the PNP, which is to win back their traditional safe seats and to cream off some that are now held by the Jamaica Labour Party, and we will go through those. But Central Kingston is so crucial to their winning. And as luck has it, there has been great controversy surrounding Central Kingston. As you know, the young man Lawrence Rowe, and I mentioned this before, who'd formed the view based on whatever communications there were to him that he was to be the person representing the party and who'd been nominated on the nomination day which just went by. He was unceremoniously removed, and that was on the basis of some poll, to the point where he's now switched. Former Senior Superintendent of Police Steve McGregor is the candidate, and he is putting up a massive fight to reclaim whatever territory may have been lost in Central Kingston. So he's back up against Donovan Williams. I understand there have been some improvements on the ground. So those of the voters from 2020 who stayed away for the People's National Party, they are probably now supremely energized. So a lot will turn on what impact, if any, has the Lawrence Rowe fallout caused in Central Kingston, and whether the work done by Donovan Williams is sufficient to have him hold it by even a whisker. Mark your safe, traditionally safe PNP seat, to have won it by 303. You're literally, it's a bed of cactus, political cactus he must be living in at the moment. And it's just going to be a long race for him. Yeah? This is a seat. I said that I believe Madam Rose Leon was there. I believe, based on the histories, Michael Manley's old seat as well. Wills O. Isaacs, and since about 1997, it's Ronald Thwaites' seat, and then Victor Cummings had a very short stint there. So some big names you can think of in the politics. And then this blip, Donovan Williams. So we're watching that. I'm certainly watching it. And then Portland. In fact, Portland, Hanover, Trelawny, St. Thomas, those four constituencies, four parishes rather, they have about 8 constituencies, 2 in each parish. Portland, East Portland, traditional PNP seat. Dr. Linville Bloomfield held that for some time, and then we lost Linville Bloomfield to a murder most foul. And thereafter, a community activist was able to win in the by-election, and to win and to solidify the win in a subsequent election in the person of Anne-Marie Vaz. And by all accounts, Anne-Marie Vaz has continued to work that seat. So this is part of the reason I put safe in open and close quotations, because when you have a traditional safe seat to the point sometimes where there is almost abandonment, the amenities in the constituencies have been crying out for maintenance, they've been crying out for lobbying. And when you have somebody who literally comes from a community background and who puts him or herself in the seat and begin to work it, then people may see that individual in a completely different way, because they're able to win support, not only from JLP supporters, but also from PNP because of the community-based activism with which the person is clothed. So for Anne-Marie Vaz, for example, I heard her speaking on the political campaign trail where she told us it's really walking with Darrell Vaz, her husband, who's been the MP in West Portland, that people started saying, why you don't run? And when she did, she'd been able to hold a traditionally safe PNP seat, hold it and to command it. And then in 2025 now, we see Isaac Buchanan being selected by the People's National Party and sent to Portland Eastern. As to how things will turn, I depend on you people. I'd love to hear from some of you in Eastern Portland as to what is going on. Yeah, we see a lot of things that are posted on social media, but I can't be in all of the seats. I have my people and normally put out my feelers, hear from them and so forth. But I just love to understand how things are down there. But Portland Eastern is one of the constituencies that the PNP must win if it is to have any chance of forming the government. Trelawny, Northern Trelawny in particular, another seat I think the PNP needs to take back. And watching that one with interest, because it was one of the original 32 seats in 1944, and it has voted for the first 27 years, though, based on the history, the first 27 years in the life of that constituency, that is between 44 and 72, it was all JLP. So based on the history, you have people like Alan Douglas between 49 and 59. You have Wakeland between 59 and 62, and then Alan Douglas again because Wakefield died. But then between 89 and 2016, that is when the dominance of the PNP commenced and continued. So they had like Desmond Leakey, Patrick Atkinson, who was the Solicitor General or Attorney General? Queen's Counsel, I think he was the Attorney General. And then Dr. Patrick Harris. And then, similar to what happened in Central Kingston in 2020, we have this young attorney at law, Tova Hamilton, based on the swing that came in a low voter turnout. She won that seat in 2020 for the Jamaica Labour Party. Yeah? There have been a lot of rumblings coming from that constituency nationally, but things that have brought to the national stage about what was not happening there. And from all accounts now, things have settled a bit in Trelawny Northern. So it's a matter of seeing now whether Dr. Wickham McNeil, who climbed to becoming a tourism minister for Jamaica and who held and did very well in that portfolio, certainly from my assessment of his role as tourism minister. And he held Western Westmoreland for an awfully long time, but was dethroned by a political newcomer in 2020 as well, a young man, Moreland Wilson. And it is Moreland's beating that sent him packing politically for a while, and he's now re-emerged in Trelawny Northern seeking to challenge Tova Hamilton. So when I look at this election, the stakes are so high. There are a lot of people, if they lose, who will be on sure political retirement ground. And Dr. Wickham McNeil is one of them. It means he has an awful lot for which he needs to challenge. And this is why these polls of Don Anderson, which show the dead heat situation, but more importantly, in my view, it is the momentum where it is at now. It means that both parties have all to play for. Lactic acid creeping up in the glutes shouldn't stop any of the parties now, because if you've trained for world championships, if you've trained for Olympics, you cannot feel pain when you're at the 150-meter mark heading to complete the 400-meter dash. Yeah? So this is part of the assessment that we have to go through to sort of clinically give you a sense as to where things are heading based on the preliminary numbers coming in, the seats the PNP must win, and the different roads that can be taken for the JLP to retain the election. We will continue with that analysis over the course of the next couple of weeks on this program to give you a sense as to how the tide can and will turn on election night.